Hi, everybody. Jennifer here from Gals, Ghosts, and Ladies. Um, I hope everybody's doing well on this frigid winter last night of January. And, I just took the dog out and it looks like a full moon. So a cold, bright winter night, perfect night to tell a scary story. As always, I'm going to start tonight's show by doing some what I call housekeeping. Um, if there's anybody watching, let me know that you can see me or hear me. So far, I don't see anybody in the house, so to speak, but when somebody does join us, let me know. We are live from Lizzie Lou Studio, and I love my banner. So, Lizzie Lou Studio, this is where we are tonight. And this is really my happy place. I love my little live streams. Uh, I'm sitting in that white chair that you see looking at the computer. Right above the computer is my camera. And that's kind of the little space that I'm sitting in. And I love all my little goodies and knickknacks. So I have a really cool clock there. And if you see the clock, I had to take the battery out of the clock because the clock makes so much noise. It was really annoying. So I had to take the battery out. So the clock is just there just for looks. I can see the clock on my computer. So again, here we are on a very cold last Saturday night, last night of January 2026, with a full moon out there. It's I don't know, I'm 18 degrees out if we're lucky. I don't know. I'm trying to see if I can get a temperature on my computer. I don't see it, but if we're lucky, it's 18 degrees, and there's definitely a wind chill. So, anyways, drop a comment. Let me know who's in the house. I'm going to go ahead and get some housekeeping done, as it were. So, again, welcome to Gals, Ghosts, and Ladies Saturday Night Live Stream. We are live at Lizzie Lou Studio. It is a little chilly in Lizzie Lou Studio, so you won't mind if I reach over and turn my heater on and off every now and then. So, but Lizzie Lou Studio is very much my happy place. Let's see. I want to thank everybody who's watching on Facebook. I want to thank everybody who's watching on YouTube. And if you're watching live, very, very grateful. And if you watch at a later time, I appreciate that as well. Sometimes these podcasts and live streams, I can't always get to them when I want to. So I'll put them on in the background at a later time when I'm doing some housework or putting my makeup on, that kind of thing. Uh, I want to remind folks that this is an 18 and over conversation. I like to swear, and I think you know what I'm going to say next. Sometimes I do get a little bit disturbed that we're not more disturbed by the disturbing things we talk about. And this one is disturbing. Tonight's content on the Slenderman, it's pretty disturbing. I think in a cool way. And I'm got a lot to say, so bear with me about this topic. Anyways, let's see. Where was I doing housekeeping 18 plus conversation? As always, I want to give a shout out to Ladybug Pest Control, my day job. As you all know, live streaming and paranormal investigation is a hobby for me. And if you're going to have a hobby, you got to have a good day job. So shout out to Ladybug Pest Control. And I'm very, very fortunate that I work Monday through Thursday. So I've got Fridays to do my research and to start prepping for my live streams. So very, very grateful to Ladybug. Thank you very much. Um, I want to remind folks that I am my own research assistant and I'm also my own graphic artist. Any errors are mine and mine alone. I do apologize in advance for any research errors. Um, and as I always say, whatever I tell you tonight and any night, I'm not going to give you my sources. Don't take my word for it. Look it up yourself. You all got a Google finger, and come back and let's talk about what you find. But anything that I tell you, I found it on, I would say, fairly legitimate source. And as I've said before, I will throw Wikipedia out there. Wikipedia is a great place to start, like to outline, to get some ideas of where you want to go. It is not the best source because anybody can edit it. That's the thing about Wikipedia. But again, it is a good place to start for some things, and also YouTube. But you have to be careful with YouTube, as you will find out. We're going to talk about that. Let's see. Remind people that I am new to live streaming. I've only been doing it since August, and I'm new to StreamYard. So feel free to critique, but please be kind. If you're going to slam me, do it in my DMs. Don't do it in public, please. Let's see. I've got 3 comments. Who is here? Hi, Lisa. And hi, Laurie. And Lisa, I'm going to show your picture from Savannah, Lisa. So sit tight. That picture is coming up. So I also want to say about tonight's subject of Slenderman. Let's see, banners. Thanks to Lisa Aubie for tonight's subject, the Slenderman. Lisa has definitely suggested many good topics. Some of them are on the list still to do, and some of them I have done, and some of them I want to do part 2s on. So Lisa is always trying to help me find fun and interesting content, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Lisa. So thank you for this topic tonight. This is a good one, and I think you're going to see kind of where I go with this is kind of interesting, a little bit different, and that's what's really scary about this. There's some really scary stuff about this that's real. So let's see. And also want to check in with everybody about my surgery. I don't think if you can see anything, it's hardly there, but it's probably about 3.5 inches. And I had my stitches taken out in my back. My doctors are very confident that they got everything out, and I feel fine, and I'm back to work, and I'm back to everything, which isn't much. Like, I'm not skiing, never skied, nothing like that, just back to normal. I'm very grateful to the folks over at South Coast Dermatology. Thank you very much. And to my own doctor too. Thank you so much. Again, we have a great topic tonight. Oh, I wanted to throw this picture up there. If anybody remembers, you all remember. Laurie, you remember. Lisa, you remember. Will, you probably remember. Will and Kathy, are you in the house yet? So I have this creepy doll head EMF detector that I was going to raffle off at a paranormal fair that I had booked a table at in November. Well, the paranormal fair got canceled, so I haven't raffled this off yet. I'm going to raffle it off in April. So you all have many more chances to get entered and re-entered. And I will say this, everybody who comments tonight will get 1 entry. So like, you don't get an entry for every comment you make. That's not what I mean. But every person who comments, like Laurie, you're going to get another entry. Lisa, you're going to get another entry. Anybody else who does make a comment will get an entry or another entry. And I do have all the tickets right here. This is the book of tickets. And when I put your ticket in there, I put your name on it. So I know whose tickets are whose. I have quite a few there because quite a few of you do have tickets in there. I wanted to let you know that I didn't forget. I was really bummed that psychic fair got canceled. So I was really looking forward to it and like selling some jewelry and some stuff like that. But anyways, let's see. What else? And also shout out to Will and Kathy. Thank you so much. I appreciate that you watch. I hope Kathy Ferrara tunes in tonight because I think I want to say something about growing up where we grew up. So the Slender Man, he's, let me take this graphic down. Sorry. So the Slender Man is what is called an egregore. Thank you to my friend Sue Jacobucci, the writer, for that word, egregore. Not a ghost, not a spirit, but let's see, a non-physical collective thought form or like a psychic entity that is created and sustained by shared beliefs, emotions, thoughts, rituals, by a certain or distinct group of people or a subset of people. These thought forms are thought to accumulate power and develop kind of a semi-autonomous will, if you will, that influences people's perceptions and behavior. I gave it a nickname of psychic mob mentality. So you have a something like the Slenderman, and he's not real, but it convinces people to a group of people to do things or to think things or to believe things. Egregore. So that's the word of the day. I'd never heard of that before. So again, thanks to my friend Sue Jacobucci for the word of the day. It pays to have a friend who is a writer, that's for sure. Uh, and this story is definitely mysterious and macabre, and that is what we like to do here at Gals, Ghosts, and Ladies, keep things really mysterious and macabre. Um, the story of Slenderman, in my estimation, is really a story of unattended youth, and I'll explain that kind of as I go along. And Slenderman is certainly an urban legend, and we know so many other urban legends locally and in the greater kind of fabric of our history. Let's see, locally, any of my local peeps out there, Green Lady Cemetery, there's an urban legend. Lisa Aubie, you know that one. And I did a show on that. I would recommend that you guys go back and watch that. It's on YouTube. It was a pretty good episode telling the story about how that legend happened. And there a murder. I never knew there was a murder involved. But that's a local urban legend. And then let's see, in the bigger picture of urban legends. Oh, by the way, forgive me for looking at my notes. Thank you. Lots of notes. In the bigger picture of urban legends, alligators in sewers. Now, why is that a really scary urban legend? Any of my Boston peeps? Let's see. Anybody from Boston watching? No. Well, why is alligators in the sewers really scary? Because, every 5 years or so, they pull an alligator out of Jamaica Pond. And Jamaica Pond is this little man-made pond kind of in an outside little part of Boston. And because some idiot got an alligator thinking they were going to be a badass gangsta, and they had to let it go because you can't have an alligator in your apartment in Massachusetts. So that's what's really kind of creepy about the alligators in the sewers, because I don't know, that's one that's not outrageous, you know. And then there was one that, oh, hi, Sybil. Welcome. Always nice to see Sybil. She's one of my gals for sure. But then we've got the urban legend that Paul McCartney was dead. That played to our fears. Oh no, and that was even before John Lennon died. Um, then how about the urban legend about the babysitter and the killers calling from the inside the house before cell phones? That was landlines. They were calling from inside the house. Dun, dun, dun. Or I remember this one. Who remembers this one? And I don't remember the whole thing. I'm just kind of speaking off the top of my head, right? So the guy and the girlfriend are driving down the street, and Michelle Mitchell, I wish you were watching, because I remember hearing this story in front of Ricky Duchesne's house. Oh my God, I must have been like 5, 6, 7 years old, 4, 3, maybe 4 or 5 years old. Anyways, the boyfriend and the girlfriend driving down the street, and the car runs out of gas. The car breaks down. Oh, there goes my light filter. And the car breaks down. And he says to the girlfriend, you stay here. I'm going to go get help. And he leaves her, and she stays in the car all night long and hears a mysterious scratching on the car and thinks it's the wind blowing these trees. And the boyfriend never comes back. So in the morning light, she opens the car door and she ventures out of the car. And there's the boyfriend hanging from the tree upside down, scraping against the car. Oh, does anybody remember that story? I was in Woolkit when I first heard that story. Paul Street in Woolkit. And really, I was like 5 years old. That story scared the crap out of me. But I think that was, my point was, that's one of the more broader urban legends, as opposed to something like I said, Green Lady Cemetery, very local to Bristol. And every place has their small local legends. So that's kind of some of the urban, a bigger picture of urban legends. Now, I'm going to tell two stories to start. Please bear with me. I'm going to tell two stories, and the stories are relevant. Mark Ramponi, if you're in the house, can you drop a comment? Because I'm getting ready to tell a story about the Sidelingers. Well, all right. When I was growing up, the Sidelingers were my neighbors. Our houses were like 20 or 30 feet. We were like right on top of each other. Wonderful people to have as neighbors, though. I grew up with them from the time I was 4 till like 18, and we all went our separate ways. Very nice family, very nice family. But in probably 1969 or 1970, so again, I was like 5 years old, right? I was outside with the neighbor kid, Lynn Seidlinger. So if I was 5, she was like 3. While we were out there, she got bit by a squirrel. What a weird thing to happen, right? So my aunt was babysitting for us, and she went next door and got Lynn's mother. And my aunt and Lynn's mother took Lynn to the hospital to have the squirrel thing checked out. I'm sure the police came and looked for the squirrel, probably didn't find it. And anyways, so Sandy, the oldest Seidlinger daughter, who's maybe 2 or 3 years older than me, so she must have been like 8, took all of us kids, and we went in their basement because the adults took Lynn to the hospital. So we were all in the care of this 8-year-old girl, Sandy Seidlinger, in the basement. And her sister had just been bit by a squirrel. And this is what she was telling us. Look in the cellar windows. I see squirrels with bloody teeth. Vampire squirrels with bloody teeth. They're going to bite us all. And scared the living daylights out of me. I was 5. I can't speak for my brother or for David Seidlinger. Dean wasn't even born yet, or for anybody else. My cousins were there too. Scared the crap out of me. And I was like 5. For the next 2 years, every night when I went to bed and I heard scratching against a bedroom window or something, I was convinced there was a vampire squirrel with bloody teeth outside. So that really made an impression on me, and it stayed with me for a very, very long time, even longer than that, if I admit the truth. Although as I got older, I knew it was crap and baloney and a story made up, but it still scared me. And looking back, I'm almost 62. Looking back, that scared me every single night for a good 2 years of my life. So there's a reason why I'm telling that story, and part of it's got to do with being like unsupervised kids. You just don't know what your kids are doing, what they're up to, what they're watching, what they're hearing, what they're listening to. And it gave a real paranoia, like some of these urban legends do, a fear of being watched. It's kind of an urban legendy kind of a thing. Paranoia, real fear. But anyway, so keep that story in mind, that thing really stuck with me for a long time. It was a very scary, very traumatic thing, and it really stayed with me, and it wasn't true. It wasn't real, and it stayed with me, and it frightened me for a long time. So now I want to tell another story. Again, you'll find how these kind of intertwine with the Slenderman. So thank you so much for bearing with me while I tell all this stuff, right? So I watched this guy on YouTube named Dr. Andrew Vandervaart, and he's a psychiatrist or psychologist, and he analyzes interrogations, crime interrogations, and that kind of stuff. But I accidentally, just randomly stumbled across this video of his that is not his regular kind of review. I'm going to turn my heater on. Not his regular review of a criminal interrogation. But this is what he said. So what this doctor likes to do in his spare time, like, like we all like to, oh, hi, Carrie, nice to see you. Like we all like to look at like certain videos, like, I will never ride a roller coaster again, but I'll tell you what, I do like watching videos of big ocean ships and Navy ships getting tossed in big mountainous waves, and I just love that thrill. I don't know why, because I'll never ride a roller coaster again because I'll break my neck. You got to get your thrills somewhere, and they don't do drugs anymore. Um, so, anyways, but this doctor likes watching mountain rescues and mountain tragedies on YouTube. So I make no judgments because I watch some really creepy shit on YouTube, and you all do too. You know it. True crime, ghost stuff, things that are very questionably true or not, and you still watch. We all watch stuff on Facebook, and we fall for it, and it's bullshit. And we need to pay attention to that. I need to be careful what I say so I don't get banned anywhere. But so anyway, so this doctor likes to watch these videos of mountain rescues and mountain tragedies, and he ran across one called Two Influencers Die on Everest. So he's like, whoa, let's check this out, right? So it's a full production YouTube video, with thumbnails and music and a story, and it's narrated by a human being, so it gives every appearance of being real. It presents as being a true story. So here's the story. These two influencers from LA, Los Angeles, LA, decide that they're going to climb Mount Everest, and they get there and they're going up the mountain, and they're not doing well. They start having, what do they call that, altitude sickness. And the Sherpas, who are the guides in the mountains, the Sherpas are telling them, you need to take our advice. You've got to do what we tell you to do. So these two influencers, Madison somebody, and the guy had a name, really all-American LA names. So unnoteworthy, I can't even tell you what they are. Anyways, hear me out. So they told the Sherpas that the Sherpas tried to give them medicine for altitude sickness, and they told the Sherpas, the girlfriend, and said, I don't put chemicals in my body. And the guy kind of took her lead and said, well, I'm not going to put chemicals in my body either. She's not going to put medicine in her. I'm not going to put medicine in me. I'm an influencer from LA. And then they started acting dehydrated, and the Sherpas said, you please, if you're not going to take medicine, please drink some water. If you don't, the Sherpas said, if you don't drink water, you guys are going to die. And the girl said, being an influencer from LA, said, I'm plenty hydrated, water bloats me, and it makes me have to pee. So to that. And the boyfriend, being a good boyfriend of an influencer from LA, decided not to drink water either because he didn't want to get bloated either. And ultimately, what happened? Well, they died from altitude sickness and dehydration because they didn't listen to the Sherpas. And what happened was this channel and this particular video ended up with thousands and thousands and possibly hundreds of thousands, but thousands and thousands of views. And what happened was every single person that commented, thousands of comments, blasted those influencers. Well, they got what they deserved. Influencers from LA, and they didn't listen to the Sherpas on the mountains. Well, they should have died. Who doesn't drink water when they're dehydrated? Who doesn't do this? And who doesn't? And there were literally, excuse me, thousands of people just blasting these two influencers from LA. And so this doctor who was watching this video said, this is really bizarre, and these are really generic names, and this story is just a little too corny for my tastes. So he researched it, And there were no such people as Madison so and so and her boyfriend so and so, so and so. And the Sherpas that they mentioned didn't exist, and there were no influencers by that name out of LA, and there were no deaths on Mount Everest by those people. What it was rage bait. Okay, we all know what clickbait is. It's like, blah, 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 here's half a headline, click below for story. Well, don't do it. Don't do it. I think most of us know not to do it. Well, this was rage bait, and it gets people to engage and be really mad at something that didn't happen. Hundreds of thousands of people believed that this really happened, and it enraged them, and it was rage bait. So this doctor exposed this, and I think that hearing this, I really have to take everything that I see on the internet with a grain of salt. You guys need to take me with a grain of salt. Like I said, don't take my word for anything. Look it up yourself. But I thought, if you want to look that up, influencers die on Everest, hubris or hoax. It was really good. And it just really struck me about a reminder that what I'm reading online and what I see on YouTube and the stories on Facebook, they're not true. They're not true, and we're falling for it. We're falling for it. Okay, so keep those two stories in mind. The story about that school story, and how long that stuck with me. And then also this story about these influencers that enraged, 450,000 people, and it wasn't true. And the other thing that the doctor did, and God, he spent a lot of time researching this. He looked through thousands of comments, and he said he didn't find one single comment calling this out as fake. Not one comment. Every comment was like, they deserved it, so on and so forth. So I just thought that was really interesting. Keep those couple of things in mind. Let's say. So yeah, might have to refer back to that page afterwards. I'm not sure. So thank you. I hope you do like the background. So we are going to get into talking a little more now about Slenderman, and because Lisa Aubie, she did suggest tonight's subject. She sent me this picture. And I'm going to show you another picture in a moment. And it's full moon in Savannah. And Lisa lived in, is it Savannah, Lisa? Ah, there it is. My backdrop looks almost like Lisa's picture from Savannah on the full moon. And I just remember Lisa saying that, oh, Savannah was a beautiful, beautiful town. And Lisa spent Christmas in Savannah. And that's kind of on my bucket list to go to Savannah at Christmas time. But Lisa took this picture, but look a little closer. And you see that kind of weird shape in there. Now, yeah, no, that's not, I'm sure it's probably not Slenderman, not Mothman, probably not Slenderman. But look at some of these pictures. These are kind of some artist renditions of Slenderman. I'm going to talk about his description a little more, but these are some really cool images. Creepy AF, as the expression goes. So yeah, Lisa's pictures really, I think, really suitable for tonight's live stream, especially because also she suggested the content. So where does Slenderman come from? Part one. Okay, so he was born from a Photoshop contest in 2009. There was this guy named Eric Knudsen, and he had an online name of Victor Surge. I'm sure it had some kind of meaning or something to it. It was a Photoshop contest to create something paranormal. So he did. and he posted it to a site called Something Awful. And if you've ever heard of creepypasta, Something Awful was very similar to creepypasta. Early, in the 2000s, Something Awful, it was a comedy, like a spoof site. It was fan fiction. It was fan blogs. It was digitally edited images, memes, um, forums, like kind of like paranormal penthouse forums. It was a dark and stormy night. The ghosts were very active. Yeah, so if you've ever read a penthouse forum, that's kind of where I'm going in my mind with that kind of fan fiction kind of stuff. Anyways, and which isn't really kind of far off. If you've ever read any fan fiction like Dark Shadows, creepy, very creepy. But anyways, this site focused on that kind of stuff, really user uploaded stuff, fan stuff, digitally edited images. So this guy uploaded these. Oh, I also want to say the mods and the owner of Something Awful, that website. They were kind of sleaze bags. They were not nice guys. They were in trouble with the law. They didn't have good reputations. They weren't known to have good business practices. Um, so just kind of throwing it out there. So these, let's see, this is what was originally posted. These are the first, Will in the recliner and in the house. Nice to see you, William, and Kathy. Hello to you as well. Thank you both for your support. I appreciate it. These are the first two photos posted to what did I say that site was called? Something Awful of Slenderman. I think it's a little easier to identify him in the picture on the right, maybe not so much in the picture on the left. So this is what I've done. Kind of, I want to say circled them. I've squared them. I've squared them. And so it wasn't just that this was posted to Something Awful. This guy, somebody anyways, added some text. And so the text under the first photograph read, "We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them. But its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time." 1983, photographer unknown and presumed dead. The quote under the second photograph read, "One of two recovered photos from the stirring city library blaze, notable for being taken the day which 14 children vanished and for what is referred to as the Slenderman. Deformities cited as film defects by officials. Fire at library occurred 1 week later. Actual photograph confiscated as evidence." 1986, photographer Mary Thomas, missing since June 13th, 1986. Well, the addition of these two little paragraphs was fiction. So, but it opened the door for people to add their kind of their own contextual ideologies to the Slender Man. And as you can kind of see, especially from the one on the right and from like some of these like fan pictures, the inspirations come from modern and classic. Where am I? There we go. There I am. Inspirations for Slenderman from his looks come from kind of modern and classic influences. Remember the tall guy in Phantasm? I do. That guy scared the crap out of me. He's got Stephen King influences, H.P. Lovecraft influences. The gentleman from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yeah, he's got that kind of vibe. Just to name a few. And if you noticed, there is a Slender Man somewhere in my background. I'm sure you can see him because he does have a little red tie on. So I just thought that would be kind of cool to slip that in the back there. But that was back on June 10th, 2009. So that was the very first time that Slenderman made his appearance on Something Awful, a site that catered to fan-generated content, and somebody was challenged by a Photoshop contest to create something paranormal, and that's what he did, and it went on the internet. And then we had to go to part 2 of our notes. So anyways, as you can see, that Slender Man is, let's see, what's better there. Here we go. He's tall, very, very tall. He appears to be faceless. He's got long tentacles for arms. And supposedly he uses those long tentacles to capture his prey. This one shows hands at the end of some of his tentacles. And if you look in the very lower left, there's a kid, and it's going to scoop him up. He's usually seen in a dark suit and a tie. He is capable of teleportation. Well, if that doesn't appeal, again, okay, there we go. If that doesn't appeal to there's a vampire scroll in the window part of my brain, I don't know what does, right? Come on. Tall, slender, no face, tentacles that are long, almost like octopus, but so many more, the better to scoop up his prey with. And then what does he do with them? Well, it doesn't say. It doesn't say what he did. So it doesn't say where he came from, and it doesn't say what he did. So part of what makes the Slenderman legend so dangerous is that he was never launched, right? So there wasn't, and maybe there are now, Slenderman shows, movies, books, etc., but he was never launched officially to say, this is the Slender Man, this is the legend of Slender Man, this is where he came from. So he's launched very vague on this platform with this very vague and creepy text. I think what's scary about Slender Man is what it doesn't tell us. What doesn't it tell us? It doesn't tell us why he's here. It doesn't tell us what he's after. It doesn't tell us what he's going to do with us. Doesn't tell us where he came from. So there's a lot of unknowns about this that make it really customizable to your own fears. And like kind of like think of the story of It from Stephen King. Isn't that one of the premises in It, that each of the kids is terrorized by something that their vision of what terrorized them was something that terrorized them specifically, you know? So that's kind of the creepy thing about Slenderman, is he's really, really customizable, as you will see. And Slenderman is a fable behind more than one crime. And we'll talk about that. We're not going to focus heavily on the crimes, but we are going to talk about how the legend kind of played into them, how it influenced them. So this really targets young adults, young people, so vulnerable, so open-minded. Supposedly, Slenderman drives people insane. He influences them to act on his behalf. He convinces them to become his proxies. Make sure my heater is off. So he's very, very dangerous. He's associated with abandoned locations, deep forests, dark woods. Look, I think that, or the playground on the right reminds me of Westwoods. If there's anybody from Bristol, there was a playground behind Westwoods, and that reminds me of that. And beyond it is woods, and the one on the left looks like there's woods too. So very, very, very kind of creepy. So now I got to bounce around. Let's see, to part 3 of my notes, because my notes, I tried to be very organized tonight. So again, he really taps into our fear of the unknown, because I think the Slender Man is different for everybody. That's really anxiety inducing, and not having a face. It instills kind of a sense of paranoia in you, a feeling of being watched, but by what? There's no eyes. Um, and and the modern myths. I have three things to say about how an urban legend like the Slender Man takes off. Three things to say about it: internet, internet, and internet. And if I sounded like Jonathan, what's his name? The three P's: price, price, and price. Seriously, internet, internet, and internet. And why do I say that? This story started on the internet in 2009 and really just exploded. And 5 years later, so many weird things happened that nobody ever expected. But you all know the term viral, and it means when something gets really kind of picked up on the internet and just explodes. This went viral instantly. So let's see, I'm looking at part three. Part three. Adjustable to your nightmares. What happens if he catches you? You decide. So let me kind of reshuffle. Reshuffle three, part four. Okay, there we go. So I lost my train of thought. Thank you for bearing with me. So, like I said, he went viral instantly. And when I say instantly, and he was posted on the Something Awful website within days. He was on Creepypasta. And like I said at the beginning of the live stream, more of us probably have heard of Creepypasta than we did of Something Awful. But once it hit Creepypasta, from there it exploded. Again, within days of June 10th, 2009, within days of this hitting the internet on Something Awful, it got picked up by Creepypasta, which means people started writing fan fiction and their own stories about it and creating their own like fan photos. And then again, within days, a program hit YouTube called Marble Hornets. And I haven't checked it out, but I did look it up a little bit. And Marble Hornets, again, within days of these pictures hitting the internet, a program came out on YouTube called Marble Hornets, which was a pseudo reality lost footage program about Slenderman type stuff. Now, if you go to YouTube and you Google Slenderman, you can find thousands of videos that are Slenderman sightings that are just, bullshit. But they're there. They're on the internet. And that's, again, this is an internet story. That's what makes the internet so dangerous. But the story of the Slenderman, it just became viral within days. And then there were spin-offs of Marble Hornets, which again was a show, a pseudo reality show, which was supposed to be about live lost footage of, the last thing people saw was Slenderman and the camera drops. Think Blair Witch Project kind of thing. And also what these shows were able to showcase, because it was like first person video, was that supposedly Slenderman interfered with audio and video. And listen, I am look, you see my background and you see I added those like little orbs to it and all that kind of stuff. Anybody can add. I could make a fake Slenderman photo, video, that kind of thing, and upload it. And boy, people really did. They really just took the ball and ran with it. This thing went nuclear, insane, just crazy. There were games. A game called Slenderman in 8 pages. Um, didn't play the game, don't know the game, but it's an alternate reality game. So again, just really, really weird, very internety alternate. You're not going to find an alternate reality game on the Green Lady Cemetery. So again, this is really meta, is a word I would use, kind of meta about this. Many spin-offs, really just really caught fire and blew up, right? So part of the problem with creepypasta and something awful, and I'm sorry I had to reach, part of the problem is because it is fan fiction and it is fiction. Make no mistake about it. Creepypasta is fiction, always has been, always will be. Um, but and it's fan driven, but there's no real news, there's no verification, there's no vetting process, or at least there wasn't. I don't know about now, but there was no vetting process. Anybody could post anything that they wanted to, like this, and say it was real. And then what you happen is you have the young, very influential kids surfing the internet and finding this stuff and believing it the way a 5-year-old believed in a vampire squirrel at her bedroom window with bloody teeth, right? That's what happens is so that's kind of why I told that story. Kids end up believing that stuff, and especially if you're vulnerable, and especially if you're prone to mental illness, and maybe you're isolated, and maybe the internet is your only friend, kind of a thing, or you have a very limited group of friends, you would fall for this. And maybe when you find out that your friend believes it too, oh my God, it must be real. They believe it too. I saw it on Creepypasta. You did? Oh, yeah. And they said it was real. And they said that he did this and he did that. And again, no source, no for Slenderman, no launching point. Well, let's go watch the movie and see what he says, what he does, where does he come from, what does he do, what does he promise, what is he after? There, you just don't have that. So Slenderman was fictional, right? So and he blew up viral. It blew up viral, right? Well, what happened? What happened? Well, some crazy stuff. So again, I'm not going to focus on the exact crime here, but I am going to talk a little bit about a crime that happened, Slenderman related, supposedly. On May 31st, 2014, two 12-year-old girls attempted to kill their 12-year-old friend. They brutalized her, and that's all I'm going to say about it. You can look up the crime yourself. Slenderman crime. I'm sure you'll find it. It's a great documentary. David Near, I think it was 2020, did a really good documentary about it. But these two girls who committed this act against this other 12-year-old girl were, I don't know, for lack of a better term, and this is my term, they were under the influence of the Slenderman, supposedly. They believed this was in Waukesha, Wisconsin. These 12-year-old girls, they believed that if they committed this crime, they would be proxies for Slenderman. They would get riches. They would go find him in the forest and live in his castle. They were fearful that if they didn't do this, make this sacrifice of this other person, that he would come after them and their families. Remember that little girl that believed that it was that squirrel, that vampire squirrel that was going to come after her? These 12-year-old girls believed with every fiber of their being. And I think as time went on, it was determined that they were mentally ill, immature for their age. There were a lot of factors. They were not just like kind of your normal 12-year-old girls. They definitely had some issues. But they planned and carried this out all in their mind at the behest of the Slender Man. And they were genuinely afraid of this. And again, watch the thing on 2020, and they show real interviews with these two girls. And I believe that they believe at that time that they were really doing this for Slenderman. I also believe that anytime you have two people doing something like this, you have one that's kind of more a leader and one that's more a follower. So I think there's a factor of that too. But also at the end of the day, what you did have is two 12-year-old girls who did know right from wrong, and all it would have taken was for one of them to tell their mother what they were planning, or to say to the other one, I don't think we should do this. So it's really one of those kind of things that there were 1,001 ways to stop this, and only one way it was going to go forward, and it actually went forward, which was just freaking crazy, crazy. So, anyways, they did this to this girl, and they left her kind of for dead, and thank God she survived. And the other two girls, they were picked up and interrogated by the police at 12 years old, and very, very telling, very interesting. Like I said, they believed that this entity of Slenderman, and really this is pretty much how they described him, was going to come after them, or their families, if they didn't commit this act, and that they believed that they were also going to be rewarded. But it turns out, like, one of the girls, she believed that she conversed with, like Lord, oh, hi Bruce, Lord, hi Michelle, Lord Voldemort. She believed in, who's Lord Voldemort? All my Harry Potter fans out there. He's the he who shall not be mentioned. But she believed that she conversed with him, and she also believed that she had conversations with one of the Teenage Ninja Turtles. So I think that there may have been some talk of some schizophrenia diagnoses. I know that one of the girls' fathers was diagnosed schizophrenic. So there's so many things. So you've really had like a perfect storm here. Young, vulnerable girls, immature for their age, possibly mentally ill, one more of an influence than the other. Um, in a day and age where their parents didn't know what they were doing on the internet, and I'm not blaming anybody's parents. I grew up in a day and age where my parents didn't know what we were doing. My parents certainly didn't know what Sandy Seidlinger told us in that basement. Sandy's parents didn't know what she told us. And I didn't go to bed every night saying to my mother, Sandy told us there was a vampire squirrel. No, I kept that shit to myself. It's just, I don't know. Kids don't tell that kind of stuff. Like, these kids wouldn't go to their parents. Oh my God, Mom, I saw on the internet, I saw this guy, and he's going to do, if we don't kill our friend, he's going to come after you and Dad. Well, kids don't tell their parents those fears, those what we would call irrational fears, but they're not irrational to the person experiencing them, are they? Absolutely not. I don't think there's any such thing as an irrational fear, because the person who's experiencing the fear, it's real. That's not it's completely rational to the person experiencing it. So, anyways, I believe that these very young, impressionable girls kind of fell into this internet trap of the Slender Man, and they weren't able to articulate their fears to their parents or their teacher or another kid. And yeah, Michelle, fear is real. These girls were genuinely afraid that something bad was going to happen if they didn't do this. So that's kind of a real extreme case of somebody taking an urban legend really to the extreme. Um, but there's a couple more, let's say. So the Waukesha, Wisconsin police, and again, sorry for looking at my notes, the Waukesha, Wisconsin police who handled that case, they said this needed to be a real wake-up call to parents about the internet. By the way, both of these girls were sentenced to mental health. These are my words, kind of a mental health lockup. Now, recently, one of them was in the news. Anybody know that? One of them in the news because she got released early on kind of mental health parole from the mental health facility, and went into a halfway house, and she was on an ankle monitor, kind of like a house arrest thing, and she cut off her ankle monitor and she took off with another lady, and she was found, I think, in a hotel with a 40-something-year-old lady. And I just don't know. The story just gets weirder and weirder. I feel bad for this person because they're very unwell. Put it to you that way. If they're gonna, be that sick and believe something like that on the internet, and then carry something like that, you know, um, just not well. They're just not well, and obviously didn't do well in that halfway house either. So, anyways, like I said, the Waukesha police chief said, "Let this be a wake up call to your kids. Things on the internet. You got to know what they're up to." Very sad story. But Kathy Ferrari, you know what, Kathy? I'm glad you piped in. I'm glad you're here, Kathy. You think of where we grew up. Now, you and I, we know each other since kindergarten, at least since we were 5 years old. And as we get older, well, we went to different high schools. So after Westwoods, we kind of went our separate ways. Still very close proximity. You had a different group of friends. I had a different group of friends. We always saw each other. I mean, God, I knew where you were. You knew where I was hanging out. But were we or were we not basically unattended? Were Kathy Ferrara, did your mother know where you were and what you were doing? And maybe I did know where you were and what you were doing, and you might have known where I was and what I was doing, but my mother didn't. My parents didn't. Kathy, exactly. I know where you were, Kathy. I know where you were because I'd saw you every time I went to Mammoth Mart or King's, and I worked at King's, so I know exactly where you were, Kathy. But my point being, our mothers, and that's kind of the generation that I grew up in, our mothers didn't know what we were doing. Now, here we are in the day and age of the internet, and parents think that they know they're monitoring what their kids are doing. No, you don't. You really don't. You don't know what your kids are doing. You're not best friends with your kids. Your kids don't tell you everything. They're not going to tell you everything. And if you think that they are, you are delusional. That's right, Michelle. We never told. We never told. But Kathy, LOL. Yeah, because I'm right, Kathy, because I'm 100% right. Because our parents, because what do we say in those Facebook memes? Because we were, dying of alcohol poisoning in a field somewhere while our mother thought we were on an overnight at our friend's house. Um, Word, right? Word. So I think in the bigger picture that this is a story of unattended youth, and some of us are really lucky that things didn't end up worse for us. Am I right, Kathy? I am right. But yeah, really unattended. I know my mother worked. My father was by the time I was 14 had moved out of the house. By the time I was 15 and left the state. Kathy, I know that your dad wasn't there. So and my mother's worked right, Michelle? Oh, oops. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you know what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about like unattended because how easy was it for these girls to see something on the internet and plan this? They planned this attack on this other girl while the three of them were having a sleepover at one of their houses, and they snuck knives out of their house. So they did this literally right under the nose of one of the mothers. They asked her permission to go to the park. Oh, go to the park. So Kathy, yeah, and Kathy's dad passed away in 74. Very sorry for your loss, Kathy. I knew he wasn't around. Um, but yeah, but my dad wasn't there too. And I think our mothers worked and our mothers did things. Although Kathy, I remember your mother chaperoning a trip to Barnes Nature Center in the 6th grade, and she was just a doll, and she had a Texas accent, I think, and just a doll. Anyways, I digress. But anyways, yeah, talking about how easy it was for these kids to really get caught up in something like this, and nobody around them noticed, saw the signs, knew what they were looking at on the internet. It's very easy for kids to get away with stuff like that. Um, in Cincinnati, Ohio, in June of 2014, Cincinnati, Ohio, a 13-year-old girl who was a viewer and a writer of Slenderman fiction attacked her mother with a knife. Um, and they believed that this was Slenderman motivated. In 2014, there was a suicide contagion in the Oglala Sioux Indian tribe. So in 2014, a large group of their citizens aged between 12 and 14, there's that 12, that really vulnerable age again. I mean, 12 and 24, between the ages of 12 and 24, committed suicide or attempted to commit suicide, supposedly under the influence of a suicide spirit, similar to the Slender Man. So a suicide spirit that was faceless and had tentacles, although if it was a Native American, it probably wasn't dressed in a suit and a tie. Fair to say. But anyways, the Oglala Sioux tribe did say that this was, it's an omen that society is headed in a bad direction. Well, yeah, especially when related to Slenderman, because internet. That is, I think that somebody said that in a few years, the internet is just going to be so ridiculous. It's just going to be laughable. And I really think we're headed there because it's just so full of shit. And you all know it. You know it. Except here, dear viewers, where we are not full of baloney. I tried to tell true stuff here. Keep that in mind. Anyways, and also in 2014, so 2014 was a banner year for Slenderman, even though he did start in 2009. 2014, a 14-year-old girl set fire to her house. Inside the house were her mother and her 9-year-old brother. They did survive. The girl was a reader and a consumer of Slenderman, I want to say fiction, but of Slenderman propaganda, of Slenderman content. Okay, because now it's everywhere. Creepy pasta. Does anybody, Bruce, if you were to ask Brian right now, does he know what creepy pasta is? Probably not. That's old, us old folks. No, so you probably couldn't even find that anymore. But due to the internet, it's alive because it's everywhere. And of course, you've got good old Wikipedia and YouTube videos. And when you put something on YouTube, it's going to stay on YouTube forever, really, unless YouTube bans it. Anyways. So again, there's 3 examples, all in 4 examples, all in 2014 of some young people really falling under a heavy influence of a not real character who is an urban legend. But is he an urban legend? It's an urban internet legend. There's really no basis in fact for it. In so many other urban legends and legends, there is a basis in fact. Somewhere there's a story. I think that part of the success of the Slender Man is that he doesn't have that background story. Well, this is where he came from and he was wronged, and I don't know, like the Joker and Batman has a background story and that kind of stuff. So I think it's part of the appeal of the Slender Man is he is really customizable to our fears. And then you throw in something like this, like, what? And then you start finding patterns in things, in pictures. What? Things that make you go, hmm. So, but seriously, again, I think that Slenderman really was able to take off because of unattended youth. If you have kids, you have to know what they're doing. Bruce, look at Brian's search history, know what they're looking at, supervise what they do on the internet. With my son, back in the day, we had our own computer in the dining room, which was right in the middle of the house. So you always were passing through the dining room. So listen, there are no Mother of the Year awards on my mantle. That's for damn sure. Okay, so I'm not saying I was a good parent. To the contrary, I failed miserably. In my estimation, I could have been so much better, but that's not my point. I digress. um, my point was that I feel like if nothing else, we did monitor what the kids looked at on the internet, and I think that's important because again, look what happened with these stories. This is urban legend internet 101 with the story of Slenderman, um, and these girls read about this stuff on the internet and Slenderman stayed with them. That squirrel thing that stayed with me for a couple of years. That really stayed with me, and then you've got the story I told about the influencers from LA that rage bait that every single person, 100,000 people who watched that video and liked it or disliked it and commented, every one of them believed what they saw without question and just jumped right in. And it's going to make me think twice before I comment on something on Facebook. That's for sure, or somewhere or something where I go, oh, really? You know, um, I think that story. Let's see, back to it. Where was it? The Dr. Vanderbart. Sorry, I had to look at my notes again. But him, that really highlighted for me the influence that the internet has and how we really need to be careful. And not just because of things like the Slender Man, but because we do fall for things like clickbait and rage bait, and we believe things that aren't true. And we just need to be really careful out there. Because we don't want to our kids falling for stuff like that. Remember, kids aren't going to tell you everything. So that's our episode on Slenderman, the urban internet legend of Slenderman. And also a couple thrown in stories about the influencers from LA and my scary squirrel story. I hope you enjoyed it. In the bigger picture, I hope you enjoyed the whole show about Slenderman and how he came about and what his influence was and why he and how he played into people's fears because he doesn't have a background and you don't know exactly what he does. Um, so yeah, good. I'm glad that Bruce talks with his son all the time. The dangers of the internet, and AI is very scary technology. Um, and rage bait, bad stuff. Throw a couple of comments out there. AI is very scary technology. Yes, it is, Kathy. And sorry, Michelle, I double clicked. Yeah, rage bait is terrible, terrible stuff. And you start engaging with people on the internet, and you shouldn't. And you shouldn't. It's that's what it's made for. Hard to believe that there's somewhere somebody going, let's see, let me make up some really good YouTube content. There's a human being behind this, right? Make up some really good YouTube content to get 450,000 people arguing today. Well, I want to say get a life. Well, obviously they have one because it's working. People engage in that. Well, anyways, I learned a valuable lesson while researching this, really about taking things with a grain of salt on the internet, not just about that Sherpa story and influencers who didn't die on Mount Everest, but also about Slenderman and the influence that unattended kids and the internet, and how they kind of intertwine and the fallout from that. Because I just listed a whole bunch of things that happened that were Slender Man related. Look up some of these things yourself. Like I said, don't take my word for it. You all got a Google finger. Um, so I have been talking for over an hour tonight. That makes for a long show. I really enjoyed tonight's research. Thank you again to Lisa Aubie. Let me throw this out there. Thank you again to Lisa's Aubie for tonight's subject matter, the Slender Man. I had so much fun researching this. Also, I want to remind folks that I am working on a merch store. Laurie, if you're still watching, sadly, they do not have V-neck tees, but they do have some other things to choose from. So I'm really trying to hustle to get this up and running. So on that note, I want to tell everybody to stay warm, stay safe. Thank you so much for watching. And I do hope that you watch next week. Next week, we're going to be interviewing Bradford Scott. He's an author, he's a dad, he's a paranormal investigator, and he is also tour guide extraordinaire at the S.K. Pierce Mansion. So please watch next week. You know me, I'll be posting more details as the week goes on. Stay warm, everybody. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you very much and take care. Bye bye.